Insanity. Yes, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We all know the definition. We've heard it many, many times. And yet, companies continue to promote their best salesperson to sales manager, sales leader, without any preparation whatsoever, without any training or development. Off they go into sales leadership. Well, it is sales dumpster fire number 3. This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. Welcome to Sales Untraining. I'm Kelly Riggs. Great to have you alongside for the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening at your favorite podcast station. Great to have you. Hope you'll take just a moment, like and subscribe to the podcast. Don't miss a single episode, and hopefully there's somebody in your circle of influence that you can share the podcast with. Well, today, sales dumpster fire number 3. Frankly, this one is so well known, it is really hard to conceive of the fact that it's still a problem. And yet, just bring it up. Just start the conversation, and people will start shaking their head and going, yes, we get it. We know. We understand, right? We need a sales manager. We need a leader on the sales side. Let's take our best salesperson. I mean, clearly, that's the individual that should be next in line to be sales manager. Agreed? Yes, we're agreed. Let's do this. So we offer the job. They wholeheartedly accept, want to move up the ladder, hopefully make more money, etc., etc. Ask any HR person what you get when you take your very best salesperson and you promote them to sales manager. Well, you get 2 things. You lose your best salesperson, and most of the time, and I do mean most, 90+% of the time, you get a very bad sales manager, mediocre at best. The question is, if we know this is true, and look, there's not been a scientific study done on it that I can find, but I have talked to hundreds of HR people and VP sales, general managers, owners. They all agree. Yeah, this is a dumpster fire. I mean, it just doesn't work. But Kelly, come on. What are we supposed to do? Promote our worst guy? Let me guess. Promote somebody in the middle of the pack. Somebody that's average at best. No, that's not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is maybe, just maybe, we think about it a little bit. I mean, listen, I was Exhibit A. I was back-to-back National Salesperson of the Year, top person in the country. Quite an honor to be that person. And we had an opening for regional sales manager in the middle part of the country. And they came to me and said, do you want to be a manager? Well, of course I do. I mean, first off, there's just ego. Secondly, there's upward mobility and prestige and, every other thing. I actually made less money as a sales manager, but that be that as it may, you're trying to climb the corporate ladder and all that kind of thing, right? So I became the sales manager. And I did not have the first idea what to do. So what I did is I went to our sales leader training program, which was extensive. In fact, it worked like this. Good luck. Right? I mean, that's what most sales leadership training programs look like. It's like, you're a great salesperson. You'll be a great sales manager. Knock yourself out. Wow, so many places to go with this. Why is it such a big problem? Well, let's just start with the obvious. Many times, many times, your best salesperson has no business being anywhere near a management position, at least not without extensive assessment and training and development and a lot of other things. Why? Because they are not cut out for it. I mean, think about it. What exactly do you hire a sales manager to do? And in fact, this is probably the better place to start, is what are you hiring a sales manager to do? Let me tell you what a lot of companies do. When they're hiring sales managers, they're looking for someone to make sure we have the appropriate number of salespeople, make sure they know what their quotas are, work with them to get their sales budgets prepared and presented, and make sure they know what their quotas are, and they know how much expense money they have and what trade shows they're going to attend and all that, and to ensure that they are entering all of their information into the CRM package, because we need somebody to ride herd on that CRM deal, right? So that's you. And then we need you to go to endless meetings, and we need you to be involved in marketing and sales strategy, and on and on and on it goes. That's what most companies do. Well, more than 50%, certainly anecdotally in my experience. But what should a sales manager be doing? Well, yes, they should be hiring and developing salespeople. No question about that. They should be effective coaches. They should develop a culture of excellence and accountability. They should be making sure that people are trained effectively, understand the products and how to sell them effectively. They should level up selling skills and certainly do some of the process things that are necessary, including CRM and budgets and things of that nature. But the vast majority of their time should be developing a team of salespeople. Now, if we disagree on that, you can ignore the rest of this, but I don't think you do. I think that you believe that the sales leader is responsible for developing a team of salespeople who go out and crush their number, right? I certainly hope that's the case. Now, what's wrong with this picture? Well, the top 5% of all salespeople, if you take the top 20% of salespeople, the old adage is 80% of our sales are coming from the top 20% of our salespeople. That's generally true, generally speaking. There's a group of salespeople at the top that are dragging us across the finish line because they're overreaching their quotas, while several are underperforming. Right? So we've got these people who are at the top, let's call it the top 20%. But the top 20% of the top 20%, the top 4 or 5%, they're unicorns. They're really great at selling. They produce, they find opportunities, they convert them, they have a full pipeline, they're always working. They're elite. They're elite for a reason. They consistently and predictably create the kind of numbers that we want. Here's the problem. Many of them cannot even tell you how they do it. They just got it, right? They'll tell you, man, I just do my thing. I'm good at it. Okay, maybe the number's smaller than 5% or 4% or whatever. Maybe it is. But when you take your top salesperson and turn them into a manager, let me tell you what often the skills they do not have. They do not have patience. They do not know how to coach. They don't have the time to invest in the development of others. They can't figure out why people can't get it. What is wrong with you? They don't know why they don't catch on that fast. They don't know why they don't know the products. They don't go out and ride with them. They've got egos, big egos, a lot of them. And so what happens is they have an enormous amount of turnover, and they turn around and tell the boss, well, it's not my fault. Clearly, I'm awesome. They may not say it that way, but that's the intent. Look, can't be me. I'm a great salesperson. I just can't find people who get it. I don't find people who are driven. I don't find people who are motivated, and on it goes. The real challenge is they don't have the will to coach. They don't have the patience to coach. They can't break down processes into pieces that people can learn and stack on and develop over time. They will step in front of salespeople and do it for them and say, see, that's how you get this thing done. Now, next time, do it my way. Tell me I'm wrong. That was me. Guilty on all counts, including the ego piece, of course. But then I realized very quickly, I have no earthly idea what I'm doing. Number one, I don't know how to hire. Do you actually teach your sales leaders if they have hire and fire responsibilities? Do you teach them how to interview effectively, how to identify talent, how to go through the process of interviewing and onboarding them? Do you teach them how to manage performance, create a culture of excellence and accountability? Do you teach them how to manage the individual salesperson's performance? See my point? We put these people in this position and they have no idea what they're doing. No idea. We don't even change the focus of their work. We just assume that great salespeople will make great sales managers. My friends, that is a serious dumpster fire assumption. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That one's going to cost you a lot of money, because eventually you're going to get really disenchanted with the sales manager, the sales leader who's not producing a team, who's not growing, sales and creating new opportunities and all that. They're not developing salespeople. And what are you going to do at that point? Demote them? No, you're going to lose a great salesperson, and you're going to have to replace both the sales manager and the salesperson. Okay, Kelly, so what's the answer? Well, here's the answer. First, before you even think about promoting somebody, how about you assess their actual leadership capabilities? It's a completely different set of skills. To be a great salesperson is completely different than being a great sales leader. Do you have to have the skills of a great salesperson? Yes. I mean, at least very, very good salesperson. But then you have to have the capacity to coach and develop, and the ability to plan and to have training sessions and all of the things that we've talked about that you typically don't have. First off, assess. There are tools to assess. You can observe and assess. You can sit down and have conversations. But number two, once you've made the assessments, you have to actually give them those skills. You have to train them. You don't want to train them while they're trying to train. How about you train them in advance, right? Setting new expectations for what this new role will entail. Okay? We need to assess where you are now, determine what that gap in skills is, provide training for that gap, make sure they have the skills of leadership, especially sales leadership, and then set new expectations before they take the job. If you don't, people will default to doing what they do best, and that is selling, which means they're going to step in front of people a lot. They're going to do it for them. And now, my friends, they become dependent upon your sales leader. Your sales leader is not going to develop A players with high income potential, high performance potential, because A players won't work for someone like that. A players want to play for a leader who cares about them, gives them opportunities, challenges them, develops them to their potential, gives them the opportunity to run. Not somebody who has no patience for training. It doesn't trust you enough to give you challenges. Will take over all the important things because clearly I'm the person that should be doing that. This is such a widespread problem. You have to ask yourself, can it be fixed? The answer is absolutely yes. But you have to change what you're doing. Have somebody on the team that looks like you want to promote them. You have a sales leadership, sales management position open. First, go through the assessment process. Have conversations with them. Provide the training that they need, step number 2. And finally, set new expectations for the role. Coming up next, I'll tell you exactly what those expectations should look like. Hey, thanks for making Sales Untraining your first listen of the week. And if you find something you like, if you hear something that's interesting, I hope you'll share it with somebody you know. You can find out more about me at bizlockerroom.com or email me, kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Now back to the show.
So when we look at prospecting, we've got an issue. We've created an impression that the sole purpose of this interaction is going to be for us.
Yes.
That makes prospecting much more daunting than it needs to be. So part of the communication strategy when we look at prospecting has to be communicating the value they're going to get out of that interaction.
So you've got the right person. You know exactly who you'd like to see in the next sales management position. I mean, they've been good for you. They've done well in sales. They mix well. They exude the right type of demeanor. You think they can coach, and you think they'll be great sales leader. Listen, there are salespeople out there that make the transition. They do. It's rare for really great salespeople to make that transition in the absence of good training and really good expectations set by the boss, right? Because if we don't change what their thought process is and what their expectations for that role is, then they're going to act in ways that are not consistent with what your objectives for the role are. But in no way am I implying that a great salesperson can't make that transition, because you do see it. It's just rare. That's why it's such a dumpster fire. But what makes it a smoldering, hot mess dumpster fire is we don't even give those people a fighting chance. You've got to assess their capabilities. Let's see if they have an affinity for being with people, coaching people, developing them, being interested in their challenges and their issues, and showing people how to do things differently. A lot of salespeople you won't see that. They won't exhibit those things in the way they work. But if you see someone that looks like they're going to be good in a leadership role, please don't quit there. Give them the training, how to do the number of things that you are hiring them to do. Developing a team of people, communicating effectively, setting a good strategic plan in motion for the sales team, building a sales process, training your people in very specific processes that they need to be successful. And then set some very clear expectations. Let's talk about what those expectations look like. First off, the conversation I always have is, I need you to know your role has changed. You were a phenomenal salesperson. Now it's time to be a phenomenal sales leader. Those are different skill sets. They are different roles to play. They create different outcomes. It's not about you anymore. It's about your team. When we train leaders, whether it's sales leaders or leaders at any level of the organization, the first thing I want to get them to do is to recognize and agree upon the definition of leadership that we use. It's the art and the science of getting things done through other people. That's leadership. I mean, the oldest definition in the world of leadership is influence. But to be able to influence people, to change, to do things differently, to grow their capabilities and all that, I have to recognize that's about them. It's not about me. It's not about getting glory. It's not about being recognized. It's about me doing everything I possibly can to train, develop, and empower my people to be great. And when they are great, it's because of my people. When they're not great, it's because of me. Boy, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. But if you have an underperforming team, it's not your team's fault. It's your fault. You're the leader. You hire them, you train them, you lead them. So if they're not doing what they should be doing, you either hired wrong, you trained badly, or you're not making the moves necessary to replace them with capable people. When you look at it that way, when you own that whole process, it'll make you a better sales leader. No, I'm not advocating for micromanagement, anything but your role has changed, which takes us to expectation number two, and that is that you have to learn how to identify, hire, and acquire talent. That's your role. You are leading a team and getting the very best players possible. As we grow, or as you lose someone, or they move on, or they get promoted, or whatever, your objective is to be looking for talent all the time. And we're going to take you through the training process of learning how to hire. One of the things I can almost automatically guarantee you is that you're not training managers how to do the hiring process effectively. In fact, in most cases, you don't know how to do it. That's not arrogance, and it's certainly not criticism. It's just observation. Man, I was terrible at it. Horrible. Did they train me? No. Did I make boatloads of bad hires? You bet I did. And I just got tired of it. I had to figure out a way to do something differently. But you change those expectations. Your role now is to identify, acquire, hire talent. Your role has changed. Now it's getting things done through other people. Your first level of responsibility. Let's assess your current team, develop a list of their strengths and weaknesses. We need a plan to address the gaps in performance that need to be addressed. but we need to have a clear assessment of what each person does well and doesn't do well. And when you create a training plan to address that gap, it gives them very specific milestones and deliverables to manage to that you can manage them for. And then finally, I'm going to set the expectation personally that not only is your role changed, but as a part of that role, I expect you to train. I expect you to role play so that your people will get better at what they do. And if you don't know how, or you're not comfortable with it, it can be a knockout factor, or we're going to train you how to do it where you adopt and adapt to it. But you have to be able to role play well to teach your people the skills they need, and you need to be out in the field, riding with them, helping them get better. How do you train someone to be better that you're not observing them in live fire? You just can't take people's word for it. How did that call go? Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. Tell me what happened. Oh, man, I got all kinds of good information. You know, what are people going to show up and tell you? It didn't go well. I did pretty poorly. I wasn't prepared. I go ride with my salespeople. I go make calls with them. I sit on the phone and listen with them, the things that they're doing, because they have an expectation I'm going to help them get better. Listen, this is one we've got to put out. This is a massive, monstrous dumpster fire, and it is fixable. Just follow the steps. Get the right person, assess to make sure you've got the right person, promote the right person. Before you promote them, prepare them, train them, make sure they understand exactly what those new expectations look like and how you're going to judge their performance. I'll see you next time.
Sales on Training is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.